How's everybody doing today? You're watching Slot Car Mayhem. I'm John, and this will be episode 24 of the Glendale 65. And this is long awaited, but I did get my router parts in. So today I'm going to show you how I cut one of these infill outfill sections and how I actually do this step by step and show you how to get a good fit using the template. Okay, let's take a look at what we're going to be using here. Of course, I got my thin mechanical pencil. I have my trusty blue pencil. I have my circle template set for its 8-inch overall diameter, giving me a 4-inch offset with a pencil in the middle. And I have the piece itself. And the piece itself here, again, 1/4-inch MDF. I already have it rough cut to about where the slot is. I've got wiring on this piece of track, so I didn't want to just use a full piece. I shortcut it a little bit to avoid the wiring to make it easier. And it's a straight edge on the cut, and I have it lined up with the previous piece. And I popped in a couple screws just to help hold it in place. And out here, I have some additional blocks clamped in place to the other shoulder piece to give me something to make sure that I can push the track against these blocks and help hold everything nice and tight and to get a good accurate line when we draw our line around the track. Okay, now that we have this piece in place, we need to get it cut. And to get it cut, we need to mark it so we can align our template. So I'm going to move that out of the way, and for that I'm going to take the black line mechanical pencil. Previously I've said that for precision cuts I use a blue, but in this case I want a thin of a line as possible. So in this case I'm going to use the black mechanical pencil, make sure I've got a decent amount of lead coming out of it. And we don't want to go back and forth, we want to draw it in one pass. So maybe two, but as many as we can get. So I'm going to start by holding the track very firmly and pulling this way to make sure it's tied up against these blocks. And then I'm just going to carefully draw my line. And as I move forward, I'm going to keep the track pulled into its proper location, just like so. And I'll complete my line. That's all you have to do. The very next thing I'll do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw blue arrows. That's going to show me where the line is, what side of the line I wish to keep. And so I know that when I put my template down, what I need to do with it. Okay, now all we've got to do is pull these screws out and remove this piece, and I'll show you what we have. Okay, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to mark the other edge of the outer edge, I guess, of the infill outfill. So I'm going to take my clamp and get my clamp out of the way. Again, I've got an 8-inch circle I cut out on a table saw with a pencil in the middle. That'll give me a 4-inch offset. And it's a simple matter of just putting this in place and drawing your line accordingly. And there you go. And it's pretty easy to see. I need to make sure I get all of it. And there we go. Now we can see we've got our infill, the shape of the other side here. And that, of course, is a general cut. And I'm just going to put some X's on the side that I know I need to get rid of. And this will probably be cut out on the bandsaw. It does not have to be a precision cut. The next thing I'm going to do is make sure I draw a couple little circles around the screw holes so I know which screws I'm talking about. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the screws out. Once the screws are out, I can just simply remove this section, and you can see what we have in place right now. Here is the line that I'm going to align the template to and cut it as indicated by the blue arrows that are in place. You can see my other line located here, which will be the other side of the cut, with the X's indicating that's going to be the scrap edge. And you can see where I've just added some additional width here and rough cut this piece into place just to make it a little bit easier. And so now I can go ahead, we'll take this into the shop and we'll start getting our template in place, and we'll show you the router cut. Okay, now that I had my line marked, which is right here, I went ahead and I've carefully lined my template up to the line and attached it with 1-inch Craig pocket hole screws. You can see the blue line where it continued through, and my arrow is actually underneath this template, and it's lined up pretty well. Edges can be a little difficult sometimes, but if you have to add an additional screw, just make sure you do it on the back side. It'll run right through here and catch it right in place, and you can see it lines up really well. Now all I have to do is take this to my router table and get this attached and in place, and run my flush cut bit right along this router edge. Okay, before we make our cut, one of the things we need to do is we need to make sure that the edge of our cutting bit is just slightly above the thickness of the material we're going to be cutting. The main reason why is if we don't, the router bit is going to gouge into the template strip, and really all we want is this bearing right here to right along the template strip. We don't want to be digging into it with the cutter bit. So make sure that your height is set properly, and we'll go ahead and we'll make this cut. Okay, here we are after we have run this along the edge, or we've run this along the router and let that bit run across this template here. You can see we've got a really nice flush cut all the way around, and I just went across and hit it with a little bit of sandpaper over the top of it just to smooth it out, because it's a little toothy from the router bit, but other than that everything looks pretty good. So when you get done, all we have to do now is we're going to remove these screws out of here and get the template out. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to just cut this piece out here on a bandsaw. So let's go ahead and get that done and see what we have. Okay, we finished our cuts. The outside, of course, you see we did with the template. You can see where our arrows are pretty cleanly. And these little marks right here where the screws are, I'm not worried about that until after we take these out and finish them. And you can also see I've rough cut the inside of the piece here with the bandsaw. That only needs to be a rough cut. So let's take this thing over and put it back in place and see what we have. Okay, we're back here at the track, and I got my little piece here, and I have the screws that I took out. And we're basically just going to go ahead and get this piece set back into place, and we'll go ahead and we'll screw it down. And we're putting the screws back in the same exact holes, but while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and just pull it into place, make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, now let's take a look and see what we have. You can see, again, we've got a nice fit all the way down. My joint's tight here because I lined these pieces up before I made this cut, so they're still very tight. And we can see our 4-inch width coming through right here. And of course it's not perfectly flush with the track yet because I don't have any shims in here, but it all lines up really well. And any very small, I got a very small gap right here. And that's not unusual on the ends of pieces when you're dealing with extremely sharp curves like we have right here. Sometimes you may end up with a little bit of an offset here. It's not a big deal. A little bit of silicone will fill it in. The key takeaway, it's not jagged, it's very smooth. So that's the beauty and how we get a nice fit all the way around. And that's how easy it is to cut these infill outfill sections. So we'll wrap this episode up, and I'm glad I finally got my router parts in so I could show you this cut and make this cut, and now I can continue with the infill outfill. So again, if you have any questions, just please hit me up. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. We'll get this infill outfill finished out here, and we'll move on to the next step. So I just want everybody to stay safe and make sure everybody takes care of their families and does what they have to do. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.